In this video, I'm going to show you how to bring some columns into your project if you're choosing to have them. I'm looking at the project in 3D, and I have these kind of walkways and balconies on the north and south side of the building, and I'm going to include some columns in there. So Revit has a number of pre-made components, and if you go to, let's see here, let's change our view to level 1. Okay, I'm going to put my columns basically at each of these walls that separate the various motel units. If you go to Insert and load Autodesk Family, I'm going to bring the window over here. Make sure that you're able to see it. Okay. If I click on columns, there's going to be a few pre-made ones that load, and you could choose any one of these. I'm going to make mine round columns. Perhaps they're made out of steel. But again, you might want to choose a wood timber column if that's your preference. And I'm going to click on load. So it's going to bring in a family for that column. And now when I go to architecture and column, let's see if it populated here. Let's try going back to architecture column. I'm going to choose architectural. There, it came in as an architectural column, which is fine for the purposes of what we're doing here. And a 6-inch diameter is also okay. Obviously, the taller your structure, the bigger these columns would need to be, but this is a fairly small project, and probably this could even be smaller than what I'm going to be making here. So I'm going to go ahead and place one. And again, I'm on level 1. I'm going to click right here. And let's take a look at that column. See if I can tab to select it. Okay, it's going from base level 1 to level 2, which is fine. And let's take a look at it in 3D. So there it is right there. Now you can see that it is half engaged in the floor. And to do this properly, I would need to extend this floor. And at some point I will go and do that. But for the time being, I just want to kind of get them in. This really wants to be sitting underneath the floor. So I can offset it so that it doesn't protrude up here. So I just measured the floor thickness. I'll do that again so you can see using the measuring tool and clicking here, 1 foot 6 1/4. So technically I could take this column and make its top level offset minus 1 foot 6.25 inches. Okay. And as I said, my plan is to kind of put them along all of those walls that separate, or on the column grids where the walls are located that separate each of the individual units. So I can go to copy, and something you might want to kind of experiment with a little bit. You have to be a little careful when you try to snap to things. You can see that selection square is kind of hopping all over the place. Usually what I like to do is come over to some place where I know there's nothing that's going to cause it to snap to something I don't want, and use that as a reference. You can see a copy was made in this location over here, and I can just kind of roll across this whole plan and make these copies. Now, you could also do this as an array, but there's really not that many of them to warrant doing that. So I'm going to skip one here. We'll go to 20 feet, separating those, and then 15 between all of the other ones. And as I mentioned, you know, you can see that the column is, you want the columns to center on grid lines generally. But as you can see, that means some of my floors are not properly located. What wants to happen really is that these want to extend underneath the column. So if I was to edit this boundary, click on it, and you know, I know this is 6 inches. So if I was, let's say, to make this 5 feet 4, it would clear. You know, and there might be other instances where you want to do those kinds of changes throughout the project, but anyway, I won't go through that process at this time, but that's how you would do it. Click on it, edit the boundary, and make that shift. You know, I can also shift this edge, or if I go to level 2, I would want to shift the edge of this so that it's sitting on top of the column. Okay, so the same process would be done from this floor. You know, technically those columns could go all the way through and up, and that's another option. But you could go to architecture column and then place them from, oops, that's not the one I want. I want architecture column, architectural round column, 6-inch diameter. If you want, you could add those from level 2 to level 3. Alternately, you could go back down to level 1 and click on them. And before I had, you know, brought them up to, let's zoom in here, tab until I can pick it. I could just bring this up to level 3 and apply. Let's look at it in 3D. It probably should just be, there's just going to be one that's, yeah, there's the one that's going up higher. Now I would still bring this floor out, and what would happen is that the column would just kind of pass through it. If you like the detail of where it's half in, half out, that is fine too. But later on, you'll be adding some railings, and that poses some challenges for the detail. So on the back side here, I have some exterior spaces, and my thought was to create little divider panels between them, so that, you know, I can put some doors and windows here, and one could go out from their room to this. So I would add these same columns along this back side. Okay, so there's that type. There's the square one, or perhaps we prefer one of the more classically inspired columns from the preloaded ones. But that's up to you. Right, so that's it for this. There's no need to add columns, probably, unless your design is somehow different, extremely different from what I have. These walls can serve as load-bearing walls, and there are ways of detailing these floors and the roof that's going to come out here so that you wouldn't really need these columns. So this is a little bit of an aesthetic choice. Okay, that's it for this one. All right, so I've just gone around and fixed all of those so that I moved them all over 4 inches to clear those columns. I'm going to hit the check mark. We can attach them for now and always detach them later. And look at it in 3D so you can kind of see. Oops, I didn't fix that part. So let's go to L2 and edit the boundary. Move this over 4 inches. And it's in here. Fix it down here at this other end. Yes. Move the point 4 inches. Check mark. And let's take a look again in 3D. Yeah, now they're embedded in there, and the same should be for the south side of the building. Yes. Okay, that's it for this part.